All right, folks, I really hope you had a very, very good Thanksgiving celebration with family and friends and loved ones and so on. I certainly did. It was special. It was beautiful, just spending time with family and enjoying food and some football. It was awesome. It was great. Now, the only thing was I did have someone very close to me, a good friend of mine, for over 40 years to pass. Very good friend of mine. And so that was, a horrible thing to experience. And we're still getting our heads around things. His widow now, his children, grandchildren, and so on. It seems, too, that this was just so unexpected that makes the pain even more worse. But the beautiful thing is he was a very dedicated and committed Christ follower. He was a minister of the gospel for many years. So we are assured from Scripture that he is in the presence of the Lord. So that's what comforts me. All right, with that said, let's talk about something that is occurring now, and that is this national blackout, this boycott, or as some folks are calling it, sort of a redirecting of black dollars from corporations that are not in alignment with our uplift and progress, but are more so in alignment with Trump and his anti-DEI stuff and so on. And so that begins today, and I think it goes through the 2nd of December. All right? And for the record, let's go to another screen because I got some things that I want to share about this, but I want to make it very clear that for the record, we are unwavering. That is the Defiant Lawyers Network. We are unwavering in our support for the blackout. Full stop. We think this is an extremely worthwhile endeavor. So while we recognize the effectiveness of boycotts, their impact is often limited without additional efforts. And I'm going to explain to you why boycotts alone will not dismantle what we are experiencing now and have experienced over the years. White supremacy, its latest manifestation is Project 2025, and all the other systemically racist policies that we've dealt with since we've been in this country. And again, boycotts play a huge part of our pushback, our resistance. But I want to caution the African American community that boycotts alone will not defeat and dismantle this enemy that we're facing. And I'm addressing it because a lot of people show up to my channel, to the Defiant Lawyers Network channel, YouTube channel here, and some also on Instagram and TikTok. By the way, please go over there and become followers on TikTok and Instagram under the same name, the Defiant Lawyers Network. So all over our social media platform, we have a lot of African Americans who say that we are not going to do anything to trigger Trump by marching, by protesting, and so on. We're going to do it smarter. We're going to do boycotting. And that's troubling to me because boycotting alone will not get this job done. I heard a content creator say that boycotting is more effective than protesting, than marching, and etc. I beg to differ. History does not show that. History does not show that. History shows that boycotting plays a part. Okay? You can think of it this way. Boycotting is like one of your arms. But you need the other arm and you need both feet, you need your head, you need your eyes, etc. So boycotting plays its place, has its place, it's effective, but its effectiveness is limited, especially when we're dealing with a system that is so embedded with racism that I'm going to show you in just a moment. When it's that embedded, you need more than just boycotting. So I go on to say here, many in the Black community cite the Montgomery bus boycott as evidence that boycotts can be successful. However, it is important to note that a lawsuit challenging the state's segregation laws, Alabama's, ultimately compelled the white bus company and the city of Montgomery to desegregate. So the bus boycotting was not really the impetus that forced that city to desegregate. It was two things, two court cases. One, the Brown versus Board of Education case, which overruled the separate but equal doctrine in Plessy v. Ferguson. And then it was this case here, in the case of Browder versus Gale, a federal panel of 3 judges determined that bus segregation in Montgomery violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. And the Supreme Court agreed. All right, the Supreme Court agreed. And on November 13th, 1956, SCOTUS issued a ruling that summarily, just on its own, affirmed the 3-judge panel. The order arrived in Montgomery on December 20th, 1956, compelling both the company and the city to terminate segregation on the same day. So we see here that boycotting definitely played a role, and it will play a role today. But it was really the court case that brought those folks to their knees and forced that company, that busing company, to desegregate. We don't know without the court case whether or not they would have ever given in. It could have just kept going on and on and on. But once that case came down from SCOTUS, that attorney Fred Gray, filed, that ended segregation immediately. So that's my point. We got to be doing it all. It's not if or. It's both and. All right? The case followed the reasoning of the Brown decisions. And remember, there were 2 Brown cases. All right? There were two Brown cases. All right, now, a couple of days ago, I released a video where I talked about the 6 mountains or systems of racial oppression, of Black oppression. In a recent video, I discussed how white individuals established 6 primary systems, or what I call mountains, to oppress Black people. These systems include white theology, science, economics, media, government, and healthcare. And the reason why boycotting is not alone going to dismantle this racist system in this country is because it deals primarily with economics. Well, that leaves 5 other systems. 5 other systems. And it primarily deals with a single corporation. In this case, I believe the organizers of this blackout are calling on us to not spend dollars with 3 corporations, I believe. I could be wrong about that, but I believe it's 3. That is not going to be enough to dismantle the systemic racism that we see in this country. It is so deeply embedded into the systems, the institutions, the structures of America that boycotting is not going to get it done. Okay? It's not going to happen. So we looked at these six systems, and they include white theology, science, economics, media, government, and healthcare. I want to repeat those. And I'm going to continue to repeat them because we need to understand how they seamed and sewed together this elaborate sort of blanket of white supremacy, this quilt, if you will, of white supremacy. To effectively combat white supremacy, it is crucial to dismantle all six of these systems. Boycotting only addresses the economic mountain. Now, we know that corporations, because of the Citizens United case back in 2014, 15, somewhere back then, which sort of opened the floodgates of corporate money coming into elections. So we know that corporations also have an oversized impact on funding these politicians and various policies. But still, again, boycotting deals with their consumer base more than anything else. All right? So you remember this diagram that I created, and it shows you that white supremacy is the root cause of all of this country's woes where race is concerned. And out of that white supremacist ideology have come forth these various systems. And there are six major systems, again, that I've talked about, and I've named them already. All right? And so our efforts must be aimed at all six of these systems. And I also call them mountains because they are strongholds. They are deep. They are huge. They've been building these mountains for 400 years. So they are literal mountains. And a successful strategy to combat white supremacy and systemic racism needs to be multifaceted, addressing the six mountains of oppression. So, when we look at our history, African American history, what we see is a multifaceted strategy. A multifaceted strategy. During slavery, you had Frederick Douglass in the ear of Abraham Lincoln. You had Nat Turner leading rebellions. You had black clergy who was educating the plantation with all the justice and freedom that the Bible talks about. You had various facets of our struggle, not just one, but multifaceted. And we see that as well in the next movement, the civil rights movement. You had Attorney Thurgood Marshall, who became Justice Marshall, in the courtroom. You had Fred Gray, who filed the lawsuit that brought about the desegregation in Montgomery. Again, most people think it was just a boycott. It wasn't. Those white people buckled once that court case was handed down from SCOTUS. And of course, you had Dr. King leading marches and protests in the streets. You see, you had A. Philip Randolph working through unions. You had African-American business people who were using their business influence. You had athletes and entertainers who were supporting Dr. King and the SCLC. So we brought the pressure to dismantle Jim Crow from all segments, and we hit these 6 mountains. So yes, boycotting is effective and we need to do it. Let's absolutely redirect our funds over the next few days to African-American businesses. Being an African-American attorney with a law firm, we certainly appreciate every time an African-American person call our firm and retain us to represent them. We appreciate that. Absolutely. And that's why we try to give back. All right. So yes, we're not disparaging boycotting, but we are saying, based on history, based on this 6 mountain strategy, that we got to do other things in addition to boycotting. So don't think that we're going to be able to sit home, okay, and boycott and defeat these devils. I like to say it this way. We got to hit these devils on every level. We got to hit these devils on every level. We got to hit them in the head, figuratively. We got to hit them in the feet, figuratively. We got to hit them in the stomach, figuratively. We got to hit them in the eyes. We got to hit that. If you picture that devil as standing before you, we got to hit him on every level. All right? So we got to hit this devil on every level. And boycotting is one level. There are other levels. So we're not going to be able to just sit home and say, hey, I'm not going to shop at Amazon. I'm not going to shop at Walmart and so forth and so on. And that's going to be enough for us to dismantle what they're doing to us through the Trump administration and have done through us through various other presidential administrations. You understand what I'm saying? All right, there's some other things that we got to do. And even when it comes to the area of economics, which is where, again, the boycotting is especially virulent, there are things we got to do there too. We need to become, for example, not just use our consumer dollars, which are quite a bit, right? Last I researched this, African Americans' spending power was about $2 trillion. That is pretty big. But see, one of the problems is we are largely consumers, and we tend not to own a lot. As a matter of fact, we own less than 4% of this nation's wealth and a fraction of the businesses in this country. So if we start investing more of our money in stocks, if we start building more businesses and so on, then we pick up additional clout, not just consumer clout, but owner clout. If more of us, in other words, own stocks, for example, in Amazon, in Walmart, now we're in a real position to hit this devil on multiple levels. Because we can say, I'm not just a consumer of Walmart or Amazon, but I'm also an investor. I'm a shareholder. And there are certain fiduciary duties that a corporation has to its shareholders. So now we're cooking with fish grease when we're not only exercising our consumer power, but we're positioning ourselves to also be shareholders, owners, and investors of these corporations. All right? And we also got to not only hit the courts like the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, we got to hit the streets like Black Lives Matter. We got to boycott, invest, and so on. We also got to vote. We got to vote. Because what is that? How does that position us? That positions us with that government mountain. That government mountain. When we don't vote in big numbers, not 59%, not 60%, but impact voting, right? You've heard me talk about impact voting. When we don't do that, we allow them to enact these laws and put these policies in place that will overcome our boycotts. So we got to be doing it all. We got to be hitting this devil on all levels. We got to stomp him in the feet while we're clobbering him with a left hook in the face and kneeing him in the stomach. Now, that's not a call for violence. That's figuratively. All right? That is figuratively. I hate political violence. I hate violence, period. As a matter of fact, our heart goes out to the young National Guard woman who lost her life reportedly from an Afghanistan terrorist. Facts are still coming out. There's a lot more that are coming, I'm sure. But either way, our hearts go out to this young woman and the other victim. I think he was a young man. Both of them young people. So the violence, that has no place in what we're trying to do. And I was so happy to learn that it was not this political violence that we've been seeing, because that sets us back. That plays into the hands of MAGA. That plays right into their hands. And as I've said in the past, it is stupid, it's senseless, it's sinful, it's satanic on all those levels, this political violence. So just as I lost a loved one, a dear friend of mine over the past couple of days, this family of this young woman are also trying to grapple with her death and planning her funeral instead of planning her return. Very sad. But yes, we got to hit this devil on all levels. Boycotting is effective. We're going to be a part of it. We're encouraging you to be a part of it. However, there are other mountains that we also must attack. And even with the economic mountain, not only consumers we use our power, but we need to become investors and shareholders and business owners so that we can, from within those corporations, apply some pressure. Even becoming board members, right? Board members That's a space they try to keep us out of. But we need to work our way in there as well. And so, yes, we got to hit the courts. We got to hit Congress. We got to vote. We got to march. We got to protest. We got to boycott. We got to do all of that to really, really impact these 6 racist mountains that they have set up over 400 years. All right, I am Reverend and Civil Rights Attorney Augustus Corbett. Thank you for watching this video. And as always, stay woke and enjoy the rest of your weekend. God bless you.